Today we're tearing down this 440 6-barrel A12 Roadrunner. Hi, welcome to my shop here in Nick's Garage. We've got the A12 Roadrunner, which belongs to Tim from Vancouver, British Columbia. And he's had this engine built 9-10 years ago, and he wanted to know what's in it, what's going wrong with it, because he's got a vibration in the engine. Yeah, you know what I was concerned about is when I drove it into the shop, when they brought it in from the transportation, I realized that the steering wheel, the pedal, the firewall was had a hit of vibration, even on idle or when you gave it slight amount of fuel. And at the same time, he's got major oil leaks from the valve cover, from the rear seal, and he doesn't even know what kind of horsepower it's making. So he's brought it to me here to tear it down completely, try to see what's causing this vibration. I don't know what he's got in it, so our job is to tear it down. And after that, after we find out if it's balanced or not, we want to balance it to make sure the engine runs smooth. And at the same time, he's also asked me, Nick, make it go 400 to 425 horsepower with the 6-pack cast iron intakes and the exhaust manifolds. After all, you know, if you're going to take an engine like this and you're going to rev it a bit, it has to be smooth. So did they balance it correctly? Did they put the wrong part in this engine? I do not know. So I just want to tear it down and look for the problem and see how we're going to fix this. And at the same time, I was talking to Tim that when the car came here and I've taken off the hood, I've noticed a lot of little things were not detailed the way it came from the factory. For example, the coil mounting bracket should have been mounted over here. As you can see, it's mounted in the front, which is in the wrong location. The fuel line, if I'm correct, it's a 5/16 fuel line, not this custom-made 3/8 line, which I'm going to look into it after. But anyways, for now, I'm sure that doesn't look correct. Fuel pump with the regulator. What is all this about? And I know that Tim mentioned to me that they did some modifications here. And from what I see, I'm not going to go with the same package they have here. I'm going to fix it the way it came from the factory with a mechanical fuel pump, painted engine paint color with the factory fuel lines. And also with the separator, which is right here. And you can see here, he's got two gas filters, fuel filters. I don't know why. From the factory, all I had was one mechanical pump with this fuel separator. And from what I see, the brace that holds this fuel filter to the fuel pump is missing. It's broken off. So we're going to have to replace that. Remove the fuel filter from the fuel line, and I'm going to make it exactly the way it came from the factory. And he also has mentioned to me that alternator bracket was modified to fit the fuel pump. I'm going to fix it the way it came. And also he had this fan on it. So we're going to remove this big, heavy, solid fan because this is not correct to the car. It is supposed to be a clutch fan, which Tim will be sending to me very soon. And we have the 3 carburetors. They all leak fuel, so we got to look into that too. Probably going to send them to Donnie Orkey to do the restoration on these carburetors. They have fuel leaks, and I wanted to run perfectly because after all, after we build it, we're going to run it on the dynamometer. So this is going to be one 6-pack on the dyno we're going to see. And a factory A12 car. So right now, let's take it apart and see what we've got inside. Just before I do that, I want to take a quick look at the flywheel because if he's got the wrong flywheel, that will cause a vibration also. Let me just take a look. Now, this engine should be neutral balanced internally. Okay, this could be drilled because the flywheel is balanced neutral by itself, or it's because maybe this is an external balance crank. I'm not sure, which I doubt it very much because it's a forged steel crank. It should be internal balanced. In this case, a 1969. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm curious to see if the rods are balanced, to see if the crank has Mallory weights on it, or it's been drilled to be balanced. We don't know. So our job is to tear it down completely. That's what the customer wants. That's what we're here for. Time to tear it down. Here we go. I'm curious to see what kind of pistons. I can tell you one thing, these are not factory head bolts right here. These are ARP head bolts, which are not correct for the original motor, but we're gonna see. I'm gonna talk to Tim if he wants to put factory head bolts, which I have a set. But in the meantime, let's tear it down. And also he's got some studs. He's got bolts on the intake manifold, which is not correct. There should be all bolts. If we take a look over here, he's got a stud. He's got a stud here. And he's got a bolt there. That's all gonna change. This is not factory the way it's set up. It tells me there's a lot of bolts that don't belong to this motor. So what I'm gonna do is I wanna put it back the way it came from the factory with all correct bolts. So I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna show you guys, take a closer look. Here we go. There's one thing I hate is when you're looking at one item, for example, like an intake manifold, and you got so many different bolts, studs, markings. It's horrible, you know, that's like a fast job. No good, no good, not whatsoever. Same thing with the intake manifold. Tim also mentioned that there's studs, there's bolts, and also stripped threads inside the intake, which I'm gonna show you right now. Just give me a second, let me take this off. Here's one right here. No threads left whatsoever, right here. So that's our job, you know. Is it factory with 6 bolts or is it factory with 6 studs? I'm not so sure on a 69, but you know what? When we put it back together, it's gonna be done correct. There's all these little items to make it look bad. My job is to make it nice. Here's another example right here. Look at this. 2 different bolts, look at that. This is incorrect. And you know, you wanna make a nice job. You wanna make it look like it came from the factory, of course. So you gotta have all the correct bolts. So when you can tell, you know, when you look at a bracket, it's got 2 bolts and they're both different, it looks ugly. So I'm not crazy about that whatsoever. But in the meantime, I also need to find out, was the intake manifold painted orange in 69 or was it left aluminum silver? So before I put it all together, I'm gonna do my homework and we'll do it correct. Here's another example right here. It doesn't end. There's so many mixed up bolts in this motor. I find them as I go along. So we got this off. Now take a look at this. This is factory. This is home hardware. This one is correct. And this one is a damaged cylinder head with a heavy duty 5/16 stud with a big 1/2 inch nut, which is incorrect. So all this has to be fixed. Tim mentioned it to me when we spoke a couple times on the phone. Nick, just bring it to the factory look, factory detail, and try to get more horsepower out of it. We want to get over 400, and then of course he wants it to run good. It's got no power steering, it's got no power brakes. He wants to feel good with this car. He wants to rev it. He doesn't want to feel vibrations. And of course, let's put some go into it. So he wants to put 400 plus HP. So for that reason, that's why it's here. And at the same time, when this was installed, they had to modify the alternator bracket so they can fit the alternator. But all this is going to disappear. I don't know why they have a fuel regulator when it's a factory designed fuel pump, which is like 8 pounds max. You don't need a regulator. But anyways, all that is not gonna go back. And all this fuel line is all custom made. That's not going back either. Take a look at this. Studs, that's not correct. You know, you guys, you know, we're dealing with an A12 here. It should be nice. It should not be like this at all. It should be nicer. So we're gonna make it as nice as we can. There we go. Look at this, here's another problem we found right here. This hold down plate is too short. Let me show you the factory piece for 440. Let me go get it. This is a factory piece. It's much longer on each end by 1/2 inch. Come and see. What he's got here is from a 3D3, which is a short deck, or a 400. Look at this. Look at the difference. So there you go, Tim. This is not the correct piece. We're gonna put the right piece for you when it's done. I don't know why they put studs. Look at this, look at this. Look at that, look at this. That even shouldn't be like that. It's all wrong. We're gonna change all that. Why did it do it this way? I have no idea. But let me tell you, this is all wrong. Look at this. No factory came with studs like that. So let's take off this intake. And by the way, all A12 cars in '69 came with aluminum intake manifold from the factory from Edelbrock. In 1970, they started producing them in cast iron from Chrysler, except for the 70 Superbird, which was left aluminum from Edelbrock on the Superbirds. Right from the factory, they were aluminum. I'll get my ratchet on that. Crack this loose. Okay, let's take off the solenoid. Oh, by the way, come and see this carburetor leaking fuel. See, that's another issue. Not only does he have oil leak from the valve cover and from the rear seal, he's also got fuel leaking from the carburetors. That's another thing to fix. You got to be very careful for fires, especially multiple carburetors, dual quad, or even a good 4-barrel. How should I say, any 4-barrel? Because, you know, the ignition is up here, heat is up there, the manifolds are on the side. They create a lot of heat. You don't want to spark when you have a fuel leak anywhere on top of the engine, because before you know it, you're going to have one major fire. Especially a 6-pack. Look how many connections there are. Look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Like 12 connections for a 6-pack. So you got to make sure every connection has no leak whatsoever. So all you guys out there with 6-packs and 6-barrel, you got to make sure you have no fuel leaks. I took off the solenoid, electronic solenoid, which holds the curb idle. And now let me crack the intake loose. I don't know why they put studs here. I really don't know why. You know, I noticed that when the car drove in, when we took off the hood with my gang here in the shop, I realized there was a lot of things that were not detailed in this. You know, especially coming from an A12 car. Come on, man. It's got to be nice, you guys. It's a rare piece. You got to make it nice. Come on. You got an A12, you know? I don't know what kind of a screw this is, but I know it's not a Chrysler item, and I'm sure it's from Home Hardware. I can't put a ratchet on this because it's I can't fit it in there. Something tells me if I put factory bolts in there, they're going to be stripped on the cylinder head, I'm sure. Look at this, look at this. Come on, nothing factory. This is Home Hardware. Call it whatever you want, Home Depot. This does not belong in this motor or on this car whatsoever. And you guys, if you want to know, this is an Edelbrock intake manifold that's built for Chrysler. If you take a good look right here, you can see the Chrysler part number that this intake belongs to this car right over here. That tells you guys this is an intake that was built for Chrysler. God, I can't believe these bolts. Look, they put a stud, a nut, I don't know. Sure, it's not my taste, let me tell you. What's wrong? There's no bolts in Vancouver? Oh, on this side, they're all bolts. Look, that's funny. On this side, they're all studs, and on that side, they're all bolts. Don't worry, for you guys who are asking, won't I use an impact? I will, in a little while. When I get done with this motor, it's gonna look good, don't worry. I like something that comes in and looks bad, not correct, and I put it down to details. You know, I wanted to say something. You know, back in the day, in the 60s, in the 70s, you could go to a dealer, for example, Grand Spalding Dodge, you buy a Dart with a 383, but you wanted a 440, the dealer would install it to you, for you. You go to Yanko, you order a Camaro, you wanted a 427, he would order the package from Copo, the Camaro comes in, he comes in with a 396, and he orders an L72 show block 427 at the dealer, and they do the job. So when you go pick up the car, it's a 427. And there was Yanko, there was Baldwin Motion, all these guys that were building cars. So all these guys are mostly gone. I don't know how many shops are out there, but I feel like I'm the guy who took over this now for Mopar, Chrysler, I should say, GM, Ford, Jack Rush used to be in Detroit. They used to build cars for a lot of these customers. Now, most of these guys are gone. And I don't know many of them are out there left, or other guys like me, that people come into a shop like mine, and they tell me, Nick, take my engine, add 100 horsepower, or take out the automatic transmission, put a 4-speed, or take out the 8.75, put a Dana 60, which I've been doing for years and years and years. And you know, when I come and I do these jobs, I feel like I'm doing their job, like what they used to do back in the 60s at the dealer. And you know, like that's what we're saying, we're a dying breed. And I've been doing this for a long time. Well, you know, we're not gonna be here forever. I hope some other guys like myself, like Vasily, that take over and do this in the future. But in the meantime, at the moment, I'm here, and this is what I do for my clients. And this is what we're all about. Fixing cars, for example, like the GTX. Andrew, he brought it in, install a tack, install a sure grip, add about another 50, 80 horsepower in the engine, fix all the electricals. We did it. A12, Tim brought it in. He wants details. He wants more horsepower. Here we are. That's what we're here for. And you know what? This is what I love doing, and this is what I like to do for everybody. So like a lot of times, you know, people come in and want to build a full race car. I used to do those many years ago, but I don't do them anymore. Now I do a lot of cruising cars for the general public, or the general guy who has the regular salary, a regular Joe Blow who drives the average vehicle, maybe an F-150. Yeah, it's an average salary. He can only afford a certain type of muscle car, not Bugattis, not Ferraris, nothing big. You know, like the average cars I have here with all my clients. And this is where we cater to. These are the clients that cater to my shop, to my friends, to my customers, and from wherever they come from. And you guys, if you take a look, this is what we do. Just the average customer with their average muscle car. Okay, I'll get my pry bar. Let's crack the intake loose. That's funny. Here's another thing. From what I know experience, when you have an aluminum intake with a steel intake gasket, and from my knowledge, when Chrysler built the 440 with the aluminum intake, they had a paper gasket that was right here to make a good seal, because aluminum on steel gasket with no sealer doesn't work 100%. So it doesn't matter, when we're gonna put it together, we are gonna fix it the right way. That there should be a paper gasket here with the sheet metal intake baffle gasket, but there's none. There should have been one, but there isn't. But when we put it together, there will be one, because this could also create vacuum leaks. Look at this brace. See that one? This one is correct, this one is wrong. This is made for a 3D3. This is the correct one for the race block. This is the B block. Our B is much longer. So that's another piece we need to replace, which I have located one for him, which is right here. Here you go, you see it? There you go. That's correct. I don't know. Apparently, that's why. You see, I don't blame Tim. I see his point why he wants me to tear it down. Because Nick, besides having a vibration, I also want you to tear it down and take a good look what's going on inside out. So from the outside, I see a lot of wrong bolts, wrong brace, the fuel pump, the regulator. All this is nonsense. All this is nonsense. Now, let's remove a valve cover. Now I'm curious. Let's remove a valve cover and see what's under there. I'm just curious. Does he have adjustable lockers? I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't ask him, so I'll find out myself. If it should be what I think, it should be the factory stamped steel lockers under there. But these screws, man, these screws are not correct. The bolt and the washer should be one piece. It should not separate like this. Look at that. It should not separate. It should be a bolt like this, one piece, that the washer does not come off. That is a common bolt. God, something tells me they have a lot of silicone under there. You know, a gasket was designed to make a seal between, let's say, a valve cover and a cylinder head. A gasket, a core gasket. And in many cases, a lot of guys, when they're engine builders or car mechanics or whatever, they take a gasket and they put glue, silicone, everything to make sure it's a good seal. Why? The gasket is there for that reason. You only use silicone or glue in certain areas where you need to, not on the whole thing. Look, I'm going to remove the bolts here, and I want to see how this valve cover is going to come off. Let's take a look. I'm just curious. I got to see this. I hope I don't need a pry bar to remove this valve cover. Here we go. Let's try it. See that? That should have come out. Look. Don't tell me I need a pry bar for this. Seriously. Oh. Told you, I knew it. I knew it. Look. Oh. You see what I'm saying? This is not a mechanic who put it together or an engine builder. I don't care what anybody says. This is not correct. Anyways, you know what? I'll find a way to take it out. Chisel and a hammer. I knew it. I just knew this valve cover wasn't going to come off easy. Let's go. You don't use a hammer or a chisel or something to break the gasket loose on a valve cover. It's not normal. Anyways, this is what we have to go through to take it off. Here we go. And usually I like to tap the valve cover where the bolts go because you don't want to bend the valve cover like this and then when you put the gasket then you have oil leaks because the valve cover is bent. Always knock where the screws are. For example, here lightly. See that? Now we're starting to bend the valve cover and it didn't even budge yet. There we go. Oh, look at that. I thought we'd have factory lockers. Wow, I didn't expect this one. Let's take off the intake baffle gasket. Here we go. Look at that. It just comes off so easy. See, this is where you put silicone. You don't want oil leaks. This is where you put silicone, then there's none whatsoever. Look at that. Nothing. Doesn't matter. Okay. Here's another mistake I just found. Take a good look. See the threads? You can tell that the push rods are too short. Look at that. In other words, when you want to lock the nut on the adjustment on the rocker, you should have more threads than that. that means there's only a couple of threads holding the rocker adjustment held in place. Take a good look right here now. Let me just take off one. There you go. See, there's only a few threads that lock the rocker, when it should have been at least this long, at least 7/16 long. You want a couple of threads hanging out, you know, because here you just make a few turns. Look at this. You make a couple of turns and it locks, which is a no-no. That's no good. So you see, this is incorrect also. From what I see right now, the push rods are too short. So Tim, that's another thing to add on the list. The reason I say you need more threads is because, you know, when the engine runs for a while, sometimes when you don't have enough turns or threads locked on the lock nut, it could get loose and then go loose, and then the rocker could come off and bounce off the push rod and cause a major engine damage. So in that case, we're gonna have to replace this for sure, because this is a danger, this is a no-no. Especially if you wanted to rev the engine high or if you had a weak valve spring, this would have been a big no-no. And you know, I'd like to know if these rockers are 1.6, 1.5, I do not know. I do not know the make. They have no numbers on, no per numbers whatsoever. So I'm gonna have to do a research on that. But in the meantime, we're not gonna go back with this, that is for sure. Now let's take off the other valve cover. You know, I'm not going to be surprised what I'm going to find. And you know, something tells me we haven't even gone into the crankshaft area yet. Okay, now for the outside stud, which is way too big, which is 1/2 inch. Here we go. And of course, we got the same thing on this side. All right. Next step is let's take down the, we're gonna take off the rocker shafts, take out the thing completely. That's a big no-no. Those push rods are gonna have to be replaced. If that nut gets loose because it doesn't have enough turns, if that nut gets loose, push rod pops out of place, push rod goes somewhere else, who knows, the valve could be stuck open and smash the piston. From what I'm looking at, I need to get a tool to measure the push rods, but from what I'm looking at, we are about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch of too much of a short push rod in this application. But we still have not found our vibration issue yet, so let's keep digging. Okay, now we're gonna take off the shafts, the push rods, and let's take a look at the pistons. I'm really curious to see the pistons. You know, those rockers look really nice compared to the factory stamped steel rockers. But it's too bad, you put a valve cover on in like all racing applications and you hide all these beautiful pieces of artwork that's being done by machine shops that design these rockers on all the engines. And you know, in this case, they even glue the valve cover, they glue it on the valve cover so good that you can't even take them off to take a look. Well, you know, I like the factory rockers, but if you're gonna rev it to a certain limit with a heavy duty valve spring, you don't go with the factory rocker. This is what I was trying to tell you before, and I was telling my viewers, you know, when you guys build a basically stock 440, I've built a lot of 440s within the 400 to 450 horsepower with factory rockers that rev up to about 57, 5800 RPM, the maximum spring pressure of 320, 340 open pressure, and 125 pounds seat pressure. These rockers are an overkill for this application. Everybody has a budget, and when it comes to this, it's a lot of money. It's like this is like $1,000 setup. But if the stock rockers do the job, they'll cost you nothing that you have already. Why don't you go with the factory rockers? You know what? One thing about the aftermarket rockers, like for example, if they're 1.5, they're accurate at 1.5. But when you go to stamped steel rockers, they're 1.4.5, 1.5, 1.52, whatever. That's mass production rockers, stamped steel. But these are more like CNC finish. They're more accurate, so they're more precise. It's like doing a blueprinting setup. These are beautiful push rods. The only problem is they're too short. And you can tell these are heavy, thick wall push rods. They're very heavy, which are great, but it's too bad I cannot use them again. Let's work on the cylinder heads. Here we go. Now it's time for power tools. Here we go. I just want to say something. Here's another thing. Throwing away money. He's used ARP bolts when the factory bolts do the job. And these are the factory bolts that are on the 440s are not torque and yield bolts that you scrap. These are bolts that you can take off and reuse them again. This is an ARP bolt. It does the job. It's nice. And you know, sometimes a bolt like this might help you doing something with header clearance. But in this case, we have exhaust manifolds. We don't really need these bolts. That's another expense for nothing. This is what I'm trying to tell you with a lot of people that have a certain budget. You don't need this. This is money for nothing. This is what I've taken off. And this is what you start with in the original 440. It'll cost you nothing when you have them already. And look at this. Not only that, the factory bolt is also longer. There you go. That's a factory bolt. That's ARP. Go with the factory bolts. Cost you nothing. They already come with the engine anyways. Here we go. That's original. It's a bracket that's attached with the head bolt on the right side, which holds the spark plug wires, which is good. We're going to reuse that. There we go. And on the factory head bolts, no washers are required. They go straight on like this without a washer. ARP requires a washer. But when we're done with this, I'm going to ask Tim if he wants me to put correct factory bolts. I'll go with that. You know, buying ARP bolts costs a few $100s. Okay, I've got all the head bolts off, so I'm ready to pull off the head right now. But it's stuck, you know, which is normal. It's stuck. It's normal. Here we go. Here we go. As you see, we have a felt pour gasket here, which is like a 53 compressed thickness. So for sure we're not using this, that's for sure. And let's see what castings there are. There should be a 906 and a 68 to 70. And what do we got here? 906. There you go. Last three digits on the casting on the cylinder head, which is factory correct. Okay, let's take off the other cylinder head now. Oh wow. I just realized he's got valve lash caps. Let's go check the other side. You know, they're using lash caps and the push rods are still too short. Wow. That's funny. They're like little caps that go over the valve stem. If you have a push rod that's a bit too short, you can use a lash cap to make up the length for it on this side of the rocker. But in this case, I don't know what they use it for, but in many cases, they use rockers with lash caps, with a roller tape rocker. They have lash caps on this, but I'm gonna look into that. If I'm gonna use the rockers, I'm gonna use them again. But if I'm gonna go with stamp steel rockers, I'm not gonna put lash caps. I'm gonna put them the way they are. Rocker to the valve stem directly. You see, there's your roller tip, and you have a lash cap, which is the valve stem right here, and it helps, it's preventive wear. So that helps. So it's a good idea to have a lash cap in this application. When you have factory rockers, you don't use lash caps. So imagine that you use lash caps and the push rods are still too short. Wow. Okay, now that I got one cylinder head off, let's measure the deck height, how far the piston is below the deck. Let's take a look. Is it oversized? I'm curious, let me get my micrometer. We're gonna do a fast check to see if it's a standard bore. One thing I know for sure, that this block was not decked. In other words, what I mean by deck is when the piston is atop that center, on the highest point, that it's level with the deck. I took a turn on it, and look at this, it's about 20 thou below the deck. So that's a no-no, because if you're looking for horsepower, you gotta bring it to zero. So that's another thing to be done. But right now I wanna measure to see if it's a standard bore. I'm just gonna take a fast look with my micrometer. Standard bore on the 440 is 4.320. I've got here 4.322, 323. This is what Tim told me. We've got a rebuilt engine. But then again, they didn't change the pistons. So what's going on here? Well, let's take off the other cylinder head, take a fast look. Is this a 906? Yes, it is. So we have a pair of 906 heads. If you take a good look, you can tell that these heads have been planed down. Look how shiny this is, right there. There's an indication that the head's been planed down, right here. See how nice and clean and sharp it is? So we know that the heads have been planed down. We don't know how much, but to figure that out, we have to do a CC test on the chamber. You know, we have to measure the compression ratio after we start assembling this engine. So we have to look at all these numbers so we can see what kind of compression ratio we're gonna have. Well, you know what, I just hope they didn't shave them too much, because I'd like to have zero deck the block. I wanna get a good quench. I wanna use the 20 thou shim gasket. I don't know what kind of compression ratio. I don't wanna go too high. I like to keep it in the very, very low tens when it comes to cast iron heads with today's octane fuel. So anyways, when the time comes, I'm gonna have to make a measurement and we'll take it from there. Next step is, let's start removing the oil pan, and I want to see if this engine was correctly balanced. I have still not found out why the engine has a vibration. We have a neutral balancer. Let's see if the mark is top dead center. Let's take a look. This is how you do it. Here's your number one cylinder. I'm going to show you guys, which I've never shown anyone. Here's your number one cylinder. We're going to bring it top dead center, and we want to see if this mark lines up with the timing cover. And here we go. There it is, right there. Meaning the pistons top dead center on cylinder number one, right there. We know that the harmonic balancer, that the marker is on correct. So we know that the balancer is in good shape. You know, if the marker was off, then I could have said maybe the damper has twisted or put the engine out of balance. From what I see, the engine, when it was running, the harmonic balancer was not wobbling. And at the same time, I'm checking the mark right now. If it got twisted or anything like that, none whatsoever. So that the harmonic balancer is good so far. It's in good shape from what I see. Now we're gonna get a little box to save the lifters in case, for some reason, we go back to the same cam, and we all know that the cam has been broken in with the same lifters. It's a flat tappet hydraulic, so we gotta put them in the same order. So I've got an old box. I marked front. I marked him, A12, 440 of course. And I'm gonna put the lifters in the same order, take it out. Here we go, like so. And at the same time, we look underneath to see if it's not worn out. Or should I say cam wear. There we have it. Now if Tim wants to take the cam home and sell it to somebody, got the lifters all in order, marked front, and there you have it. So now, what's next? Let's remove the oil pan. Let me get my impact. Imagine that, it's a standard bore, thick head gasket, the piston below the deck. I'm sure this motor didn't make any power whatsoever. And then again, you go put these high top dollar rockers. I don't get it. And a big fuel pump, I don't get it. I really don't get it. And then you get these big fuel lines. Well, that's a race car setup. Let's take off the oil pump drive. That's okay. This is the oil pump drive, which drives the oil pump and the distributor. You know, from what I see, you know, this engine's been rebuilt. According to Tim, this is what Tim was told, that they rebuilt the engine. And you know, you put high quality rockers for maximum lift on a cam with a full 1.5 or 1.6 rockers or whatever they are. But then the engine's not decked. It doesn't have a big cam. They're not ported heads. I don't think they're ported whatsoever. So what's the purpose? I do not know. So this is the reason I see why Tim wants me to tear it down. We started with the vibration in the engine. So we know that's a no-no. And we have a full 46 pack. I've driven the car. Didn't seem to have a lot of power. So now that we're taking it apart, Tim has also asked me, fix that problem and add some power. So I can see we have a lot of gain here. I'm sure this thing didn't make nowhere near 400 HP. So it's our job to get it done. I'm gonna flip it over now. I'm gonna make a little mess. It doesn't matter. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, it's got a nice oil pan there, which is correct. Here we go. Even the ball spring retainers are being replaced. So far we know it doesn't have no factory rockers, no factory valve spring retainers. And let's keep going. Look at that. Look at this. I can't believe it. I tell people the gasket does the seal, not the glue. We all know that these big blocks all have a window straight from the factory. Here it is. There's one right there. I've taken apart quite a few motors that have been rebuilt in the past, and a lot of people do not put them back. I don't know, for some reason. I thought this would be missing, but in this case, it's there. Why you put silicone when you got a gasket? I don't get it. There's your window tray. Looks like factory pistons, all right. Okay, let's take a look. I noticed that the main cap bolts, they've been replaced with ARP also. Right here. And I want to see 1, 2. It's got all the factory connector rods in there. I believe they are non-6-pack rods because in 69 they did not have the 6-pack rods. Pistons are factory standard bore cast aluminum. You can see that where the wrist pin goes, they are drilled, which is factory. They have a factory casting number on the pistons or cast pistons. So where's the vibration? I have no clue what's going on. All right, so now that we've removed the oil pan and the window tray, I can see that this is a factory crank, factory rods, factory pistons. Why is there a vibration? I'm not sure yet, because from what I see, there's nothing being done. There's no connector rods, any shaving whatsoever, or any drilling or anything done on the crank. I'll take a look one more time by just turning it over. But for some reason, when you don't change pistons, or maybe they're pistons from another engine or rods from another engine, I'm not so sure. Or is it the flywheel? I do not know. But we're going to start building an engine from scratch, and we're going to start building everything with new connector rods, new pistons, and we're going to zero balance it internally, and that will be done with. So what caused that vibration? I'm not sure. Maybe mixed up parts, but they look like the old factory. Maybe they took the same parts from another engine. I'm not sure. Or is it that flywheel's way out of balance? I don't know. I have to give it to a machine shop and spin it individually to see if it's neutral. And from there on, we're going to find out. So at the moment, looking at this, I still don't have an answer. This engine has potential for more power. I noticed that the pistons are way below the deck. It's got a thick gasket. The heads are not ported out. It's got rockers that are big money for nothing. It's got the push rods that are way too short. So this is going to be some nice build up to do with Tim. And it was fun tearing it apart, looking for all the problems. Like if you look at the internals, there's nothing really high performance. If you look on the outside, you see big fuel lines, big fuel pump. You think it's a race engine, but basically it's even less than stock, because even the factory had a thinner head gasket compared to this one here, which I think is the 53 thou thickness, compared to the factory head gasket, which is like 19, 20 thou. So look at it. You know, we're going to tear it out. We're going to start from scratch, and we're going to fix it the way Nick's Garage does all his engines. We're going to put some eagle rods. We're going to zero deck it, put some forged pistons in it, pour it out the heads, put a 20 thou shim, tune the 6-pack, go with these rockers. I'm not so sure. Go along with push rods and look for that 400 plus horsepower that Tim is looking for. And you guys, thanks for visiting us here. It was a pleasure tearing it out with you guys looking at me. So stay tuned. So when we finish building it, it's going to be put on the dyno, and everything goes well, it's going to be put back into the car. And until springtime, we're going to be out there spinning those tires. And you guys, if you look down below the video, we have a whole bunch of merchandise that you guys can buy. So whatever you like, buy it, love it, wear it, and enjoy it. And help spread the word of Nick's Garage. And if you have some time, check out our Patreon page. We have extra content, and you guys can watch it and take it from there. And we'll see you next time.